All right, glad to have you back. For a long time now, Nigerians have suffered epileptic power supply, and 2018 has been no different. In the first 8 days of 2018, the country's power generation system collapsed 6 times and a couple of times in February. On the 1st of February, the national electricity grid collapsed from a high of more than 4,500 megawatts to 219 megawatts.
Now, latest reports from the Transmission Company of Nigeria indicate that the electricity generation system collapsed 3 times in the second quarter of this year. That is between April and June. The report indicated that in April, the grid collapsed 2 times within the period of 5 days. In May, the grid witnessed no collapse, although the quantum of power dropped to as low as 1,900 megawatts on May the 25th. The grid collapsed just once in June as power generation dropped from 3,600 megawatts sometime in June to 41 megawatts. As troubling as these statistics are, they are considered a significant improvement over the first quarter's performance when the grid collapsed 7 times. All right. We have joining us someone who understands the system, who has also been following development in the collapsed grid in Nigeria, chartered accountant as well, Sheson Okwande. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
Now, on the papers this morning, one of the reports we have is the federal government is asking discos to deliver power or quit. If you don't deliver power, you quit, as the case may be. And this is coming from the federal government now. It's been so many years after the Nigerians have been expecting that power should change.
You see, the statement from the federal government is the major reason for the collapse that we are having at the national grid. When you talk of the national grid, you're talking of we operate at frequency vis-a-vis the voltage. I am supplying something you are to consume. If you are not consuming, there is going to be a problem. And that is the reason why we keep having this collapse, intermittently. The tolerance level for our frequency on the national grid is just 0.05. Are there any trinkle things that some of the things that are actually generated are not consumed or being absorbed by the disco? It becomes a problem. And that is why it seems that the federal government is not doing anything about the power generation. But, I've said it here before now, that our major problem is not generation. Don't bring so much thing, but how are we going to benefit at the down road? And the first thing the disco needs to do is to win the confidence of the masses. People have been clamoring for meter, people have been clamoring for steady supply of electricity, change of your infrastructures, invest in some of those things. And that is why the federal government feels that we are doing so much to bring in the power. That is why the TCN was not availed to the private sector, still being managed by the government. Now, the disco, all you need to do is, I've made available food for you to eat. You are telling me I don't want the food. So, the basic problem we are having currently is with the disco doing what is needful to consume what has been made available. Then you discover that there will be steady supply. There won't be any issue of collapse today, collapse tomorrow, because the fundamental is that so much is being produced, but it's not being absorbed by the disco.
But the discos will tell you that the problem really is not at their end. It has to do with the TCN and, of course, the GENCOs that may actually be the weakest link in the chain of power supply.
For the GENCO, the 3-phase we keep saying, the GENCO generates it, the TCN transmits. If the disco are saying it's not their problem, how many of the current transformers that we have are actually being used maximally? Some are overloaded, and every now and then when you overload a car, you know the implication of it.
Yes.
Which implies that there should be more investment
for the
disco to do. Aside that, look at the network of every disco. It's an eyesore. You discover cobwebs, somebody wants to come and disconnect your light, you have a prepaid meter, they are disconnecting you for somebody who doesn't even have a light. How do you manage such thing? This infrastructure on the part of the disco must definitely be looked into. They need to look into it. If it's just trade, you are trading blames. saying it's the Genco, it's the transmission. As far as we are concerned, do you know that because they've not won the heart of the masses, it's difficult for them to even earn the money? Several people are actually backing out. What prompted the idea of the Ministry of Power saying that those 133 kVA, we're going to pull them out of the disco and you pay directly to us? Because there are so many things that are causing lapses in the disco. Until they own up to this, they are the last resort that we all believe in. We are not even maximizing what we have currently. You discover that they're pushing those power. I won't want to say, I know of someone that has been calling me for the past 3 months. As a matter of fact, like 9 months ago, they got a transformer on their own. The transformer went bad within 3 months, and they had to go and get another one. And in the last 2 months, they've been struggling with a particular disco of energizing them. And the issue is, go and pay. Pay for what? Darkness. So on that premise, we keep saying that the disco needs to win, you know, the acts of the consumer.
How do they even do that?
For
I mean,
them
the
to be able to
discos too
pay.
are in huge debt. They're owing the NBT, the bulk electricity.
Because the money is not coming in.
500 billion naira.
Because
that's
the
huge.
money is not coming in.
So how do they get out of this vicious cycle? They're not getting the money. They don't have the money to pay their creditors.
So where would the money come from?
At the last time when I came, I said the NEC is actually bringing out a policy. If every consumer, I have said it, you know, outside the country, utility is not something that is cheap to come by. Yeah, our government got it wrong by saying they are subsidizing subsidizing power. If we later get to have steady supply of electricity, I can tell you, it doesn't come cheap. It doesn't come cheap.
All right. Now, we keep hearing the concept of grid collapse. Grid collapse is becoming a very a term that is household now, where young people, every little child will know what grid collapse will be. But let's even look at the grid system, where wherever you generate electricity from, put it into the national system, and everyone should benefit from it. Is there something wrong with the unitary grid system that we run?
Currently, there is, I don't know, yesterday there was a meeting at the corporate headquarters of decentralizing the grid metering. There is, you think, when you centralize something without having good expertise at the center, it becomes a problem. Currently, they have to decentralize it. So if we generate supply from here, supply your wherever to those people in that area, because the energy loss in the last few months and year has been alarming.
And somebody has to bear the cost.
Somebody will bear the cost. So you are transmitting something and you are not getting value for it. Who bear the cost? You that you are generating it. So the fallout of the meeting for yesterday was that they are going to decentralize grid metering. So if a particular area you are generating that supply, coordinate it. If that is done at the national level, we won't set it. You can do the same at the disco. Look at a community, 2 or 3 communities put together, and say, okay, Mike, you're managing this, and this is just for you. I'm going to bulk bill you. You are going to see how individual houses get paid for this value. You decentralize it. Not that you are at the corporate headquarters, possibly very like some distance. You know, each disco has like 3, 4 states controlling them. You are here and you are in another state, telling them to go and send them their bill when you don't even know what is going on there. Some areas you discover that they will be out of supply for a month, and at the end of the month you still get bill. On what basis?
So in addition to decentralizing the discos, or the grid system, the grid actually, not even the discos. Now, when the FG directs the NERC, the regulatory body of the power sector, to enforce discos service agreements, it means that from the point of view of the government, the discos are not meeting the agreements on paper, that the agreements are not even worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah.
So is that a major problem too? That the discos seem not to be, meeting their own side of the bargain.
See, I would say that some of the people that took over the management of the disco, the idea before now is that power is a juicy
area
like
of
the economy, like the telecom.
Yeah.
But it's not. It involves huge investment. You know, people's eyes are now being opened. Those days, you can afford to pay estimated billing without looking at your face. I've had several people that will tell you, excuse me, disconnect your supply. I'm not ready to do that. because of what benefit it is. I mean, I'm at work from morning till night.
Yeah.
And I come at night, there's no supply. I use my generator, and you are bringing, bill that is not justifiable. So some of them are actually, and when you disconnect yourself from the grid, how do you get paid? How would the disco generate income? So the bottom line is, it's not from the top. We look from the top, but the problem is from the bottom. The disco needs to do something that will end the acts of the populace for them to pay for. Everybody is clamoring for meter. I'm sure several people are with the MAP policy. Possibly by August, September, they will start engaging them. I'll come back and tell you that as soon as people start getting meters, you will see that there will be changes.
Positive changes?
There will definitely, because most people, let me tell you again, they are at the disco level because people felt they give me crazy bill. I can on my light 24/7.
Let me have value for money.
Let me add value for money. I have a friend that was telling me, she said, I'm equipping my house with more things. Because whether I use one bulb or I use 10 bulbs,
it's the same thing I'm going to pay.
And okay, well, I don't care. If I'm leaving the house in the morning, I on my bulb. Don't tell me to go and do energy saving bulb. The aftermath effect of that thing is that you are affecting the transformer.
All right, now, looking at the companies that took over when the PHCN was dismembered, why is it difficult? Because we often hear them say government has to invest. There has to be investment. They've asked for a bailout sometime. But why is it difficult for them to attract investors into? Because it's a private business now.
It's difficult because majority of the discos we have does not even have a database.
They don't have a database.
A correct database.
Okay.
And for you to work, you need a database. You need facts and figures to convince an investor that if you plow this into the business, you are going to get this. Some people don't even know, some meters are being installed, they don't even know the location where the meter is. Sure. You have several customers who are not connected, even they are connected to the grid, but people don't know. So it's difficult for the disco to win investors because there is no database. It's the same problem we have in Nigeria. If you don't have a good database, it's difficult for you to plan. When you have a database, and I said, okay, like in this area, we have 500 customers that we know are all on this particular grid. There are 500 houses, and all the 500 houses are customers to the grid. You can plan and say, okay, I'm going to buy 500 meters. This is what is going to cost me. Okay, the 500 with the transformer capacity, I need to invest and get another one. You are actually planning with those things. But when you don't even have a database, how are you going to convince the investor that if you put in $1 billion, after 6 months,
this is what you get back.
This is what you're going to get back.
Unfortunately, that strategic planning doesn't seem to be a strong point. But hear what experts are saying as per this grid collapse that continues to happen every now and again. They're saying that there's a need to add an additional line between the Benin and Omotosho, since that is actually the epicenter of the grid collapse. Do you agree with that line of
Yeah, I agree with it, but for me, that is the second thought. The
fundamental.
Line, yeah, the bottom line is our frequency and our voltage, which is the common ground for the two. You need to harmonize it.
Okay.
Make sure that what I give, you are able to consume. You see, currently, what is being pushed out by TCN are not being absorbed by all the discos. They refuse some of those and say, we don't want. Because if you give it to us, it's difficult for me to pay. And for TCN, they don't give it. Once they give you certain megawatts, they draw from your escrow account.
But does that in itself mean that they're not actually working in tandem, the TCN, GENCOs, and the DISCOs? Because you would assume that the TCN understands that the DISCOs cannot even absorb what they are pushing out.
But the three arms are independent arms.
Totally independent?
I generate, and you are there, you said, I want to take from you to transmit.
Yeah, but shouldn't there be some kind of interface
synergy.
Between, synergy, thank you, between the
synergy
three?
There is that, please, can you give me this I need? I am ready.
I have business partners.
I have the investment to transmit.
Yeah.
For the people at the last end, which is the disco, they are supposed to be prepared for them to say, okay, what is being transmitted, I am ready to absorb it. That is a synergy that we can always talk. But for every day, they keep saying people are bringing, let's increase the grid from 3,000 to 7,000. We keep celebrating it. And TCN is just there as the government. It's just a channel. Use me to transmit to the disco. So when it gets to the disco, it's just that, okay, I'm giving you this. So you still get to know that it is the disco who has the power now to make sure that what I am receiving, I'm able to give to my people, and not just that alone, be able to recover what I'm giving to you.
All right. Do you think there is also a challenge with the power infrastructure we have in the country? When you look at, if you go to an average street, for instance, the way the cables are laid, some of them are so shabby. Some, the wires are just like that. You know, just nothing is arranged. Sometimes some of the poles are falling, some of the poles are wooden, some are broken, and all of that. Do you think all of this is part of the challenge where some of these cables, some of these transformers can't even carry the capacity of the voltage that will be sent through them? Exactly.
In many I was actually discussing with one of the guys in the disco. I said, we need to work on the connection policy. If you are outside the country, if you go to even within the country, if you go to a civilized environment, you discover that even if they have to run any cable or up the grid, you'll see the neatness of those things. You can pinpoint, this is your cable, this is your cable. The era of you having like a 8-bedroom flat, let's take that, and you are running 8 cables. Technology has override that. The cost of buying those cables are huge. All you need to do is just one supply to this house. What that will amount to is everybody has possibly have a prepaid meter in the house. You send in an incomer, and you have like a distribution box where you now send everybody to their own, rather than having 8 cables. You discover that every 3-bedroom flat, on average, you just need a single phase. But everybody is looking for 3 phase. Why are they looking for 3 phase? To shunt. You understand? When red phase is off,
here,
let me go to this other one. And you see them recommending. So you need to put a correct connection policy. Erase the cobwebs that you have everywhere. So that even when you want to trace any fault, you can easily say, okay, this is where the problem is coming from. This is there was a research we carried out for a particular disco, and we tried to just look at an estate, and we worked on such. Their average daily consumption in that area increased, because before now they were losing revenue. On the other aspect, the fault level reduced. Because what did we do? The first building, you're on red phase. You're a single phase customer. The next building, you're on yellow. The third one. So you discover that nobody is moving from one place to the other. Then create a good customer care center who has a swift response. Because why do we shunt? The red phase is off. You put a call through. There is no fuel in my vehicle to come and rectify the problem. What would the guy do? He's seeing light in the next neighbor. All he got to do is just to move. And do. So you discover that for the disco, they have a lot of work at their ends.
A whole lot of work to do. Sheson Kwade is a chartered accountant. Thank you so much for joining us. As a matter of fact, Nigerians spend 3.5 trillion on fueling generators every year. Imagine if that amount actually went into the power sector.
Exactly. That would have been so much. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.